Greetings, friends. Some months ago, before Trump took office, Zelensky of Ukraine approached him with a mineral deal, rare earth minerals, which the U.S. could use. Trump was receptive to the idea. Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance spoke with him, Zelensky, about this issue. Zelensky waffled, didn't give them a clear answer, but they had some loose idea that a deal would be possible. Now, who knows how serious this was taken? Was this just a token gesture? Was this a real thing? Because many of the minerals are in Russian-located territory or close to the front lines in eastern Ukraine, or would perhaps be captured later by Russia. So is this even something you could do? But it was perhaps an idea of connecting the United States militarily to Ukraine, like giving them security guarantees, which we know Trump has said he doesn't want to commit his country to do, and Zelensky does. So there was this mysterious nature of this vague mineral deal, which had not been signed yet, but there was preliminary stages going on, and that of course, Zelensky invited himself to Washington, and Trump agreed to receive him, and they would have a press conference and then a lunch, and they would sign some preliminary stage of this agreement that would get American workers into Ukraine, presumably mining these minerals, and I guess, the Russians wouldn't attack them, I guess, so it would be but it wouldn't be a real security guarantee in terms of military and hardware and all that stuff. Well, or is it? So that's the context in which Zelensky finds himself in the Oval Office in the White House with Trump, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and a host of press from the mainstream media, all the cameras there. Now, Trump began talking for 10-15 minutes. Zelensky was talking. It was a little awkward. It went on all 49 minutes, so it was very long. But the first 40 minutes were generally okay for Zelensky. Zelensky's an unstable person. People say that he's got a narcissistic complex. He can't really take criticism very well and thinks of himself as like a divinely appointed leader in his cause. Of course, he gets billions and billions of dollars all around the world, much from the United States, much of which is unaccounted for by his own admission. But still, the first 40 minutes of it went all right. The last 9 minutes, he chose to argue with J.D. Vance. He made that decision. I'm going to argue with J.D. Vance, who's talking of doing diplomacy and negotiating a deal with the Russians. I'm going to launch into a story about how I see things have gone since 2014 and how we've tried to negotiate with the Russians and it hasn't worked. And J.D. Vance had enough of that. He's like, this is not the time and place to do this. Or maybe they had assumed that Zelensky would do this and they were using it against him. That's another possibility here. And Trump put Zelensky in his place, and you don't need to hear me tell you the story. Other people have commented on this. But basically, it was a disaster press conference for Zelensky, and it's a way for the U.S. to formally disconnect themselves with Zelensky himself. But does it actually mean that the U.S. is disconnecting from Ukraine? No, it doesn't. And I am heavily in debt to Brian Berletic of the New Atlas. He provides very needed commentary to give us the context here. The U.S. empire is reformatting. It's becoming more efficient. It's focusing on China. It's cutting away dead weight. It's cutting away things which are dead ends. And it's refocusing. But it's still the war machine. It's still forever war. There's still neocons here doing it. And they still are set against Russia. And the most important moment of the press conference actually came sometime around the middle of the 40-minute mark, maybe like 20 minutes in or somewhere in there.
Are you going to send more arms to Ukraine in case there's no peace?
Yeah, we're going to have arms to Ukraine, yeah, sure. Hopefully I won't have to send very much because hopefully we're going to have it finished. We're looking forward to finishing this quickly. We're not looking forward to sending a lot of arms. We're looking forward to getting the war finished so we can do other things. But we very much appreciate the agreement because we needed what they had, and we're treating, our country is now treated fairly. Biden didn't do that. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. This should have never happened. This should have never started. But, sure, the answer is yes, but hopefully we won't have to send much because I'm looking forward to getting it done quickly, very quickly.
Does that mean you'll provide security guarantees, Mr. President?
I don't want to talk about security yet because I want to get the deal done. You fall into the same trap like everybody else. A million times you say it over and over. I want to get the deal done. Security is so easy. That's about 2% of the problem. I'm not worried about security. I'm worried about getting the deal done. The security is the easy part. Security is very nice. Everybody stopped shooting. And now will Europe put people there? I know France is going to. I know the UK is going to. I know other countries are going to, and they happen to be right next door. We haven't committed, but we could conceivably. We have security in a different form. We'll have workers there digging, taking the raw earth so that we can create a lot of great product.
One of the reporters was asking Trump about, are you actually not going to send any help, like hardware or money or weapons? And he said, I'll probably have to keep sending arms and money to Ukraine. Now I'm paraphrasing there. I don't remember the exact wording. He basically admitted that the U.S. will continue to send money and weapons to Ukraine. What do you really mean when you talk of this mineral deal and a peace or a ceasefire and really ending this war? It's kind of a joke. Trump's not actually serious about ending this war. Actually, he was complicit in escalating things with Russia during the end of his last tenure, his first term, because he did, as Brian Berletic points out, participate in getting some arms to Ukraine, and I believe he withdrew from an agreement with Russia regarding ballistic missiles, if I understand correctly. He didn't do anything to the level that Biden did. Yes, it's largely Biden's war, but it's not only Biden's war. Obama participated in this prior to Trump. Trump did his part too. Just like Trump participated in the COVID agenda, he did his part. He did his part with Ukraine as well. So to say it's like, it's not really my war. I mean, yes, politically it's a good strategy for him to do that. Politically, it's wise for Trump to distance himself from Ukraine and say that never would have happened when I was president. And maybe it never would have happened, it never would have broken out when he was president because he's smart enough to plan it that way. But when he was president, he went along with fueling the fire that would eventually break out under sleepy Joe Biden. That doesn't excuse any of them. And like you said, they're continuing to send arms and munitions there. So they know that they're losing, that Ukraine is losing. Trump's not stupid. But they think they can get it into this slow simmer, which they may, to some extent, succeed in doing. But it'll be a slow simmer where more of Ukraine has been destroyed, more of the country has been conquered by Russia, and perhaps they'll get to a situation where Russia doesn't want to expand any further westwards because they've reached the natural limits of what they think is feasible to maintain politically. They don't really want eastern Ukraine. They would not be politically viable there. But it is becoming more of a possibility. I still think this is kind of crazy because it would be such a shock to us. But there is a possibility that Russia will take significantly more territory because the ball is now in Putin's court. Trump speaks of wanting peace, and now he's not getting that because Zelensky is not cooperating with him and they can't do business with him anymore. So Trump's like, well, you'll fight on, we'll just let you fight it out, meaning you're going to lose. But then what does that mean, Trump? Is that going to make you look good? I mean, maybe it'll make him look good if he thinks he can pull out some slow simmer where it's like, well, it's just like low level mortar firing and not, I mean, it's just like they're kind of like a North Korea, South Korea situation. Maybe he thinks they can pull that off. I mean, I don't think Russia wants that either. That's why Russia is going to push more to destroy the fighting capability within Ukraine of any NATO troops or Ukrainian troops or any other Western aligned troops. That would be one of their objectives. I don't know, because Putin could settle. He could settle for a peace deal. He gets the 4 oblasts in the east. Russia gets some sort of assurance, I guess imposed by their own winning of the war, that there will be no NATO alignment for Ukraine, and that the Zelensky regime will be completely replaced, and that there will be a denazification and elimination of all neo-Nazi elements within Ukraine. Those are the 4 minimum conditions that Russia would have to settle for any serious peace agreement. But do they have to settle? Does Russia have to agree to this right now? We see that the US is not actually as serious about peace as it says it is. It's not. It just wants to focus more on China right now, but it still would love to see the breakup of Russia. They'd still love that. You get all those resources there. Because Putin's not stupid. He realizes that he can't just take any agreements on their word from the US, including Trump. There's a long history of disappointments over this. It's funny that Zelensky was speaking of all the negotiations that they tried to engage in with the Russians, where the Russians went back on their word. Well, it's funny because the Ukrainians have done that and the Americans have done that to Russia for many years. So why would the Russians agree right now to a peace deal when they have won and can continue to win more of the country when the Ukrainian military is still fighting them? Why would you leave the Ukrainian military in the field? Why would you stop now when the problem has not been eliminated? The problem has to be eliminated, and the area of operation is potentially the entire country of Ukraine, or at least the entire eastern bank of the Dnieper River. And that's why I don't know. It would be such a shock for significantly more territory to be lost, because that's like double the oblasts. The territory between the oblast and the Dnieper River, it's still big. It's basically, I don't know, a third of the country. That would be a huge shock to the West. Does Putin really want to shock the West like that? Probably not. But he's already shocked the West. And does it really matter anymore? It could matter. I mean, they want to improve economic relations with the West eventually. But maybe Trump is setting himself up so that he can excuse that Russia would take more of the country. Because he can say, well, we tried to work with Zelensky and we had him over and we were ready to do this deal, but he was just out of hand. And they're wasting all this money. You can't work with these people, so I tried my best, folks. Putin, I can respect him, and I believe he's going to hold on to his end of the deal. And this is just the more secure situation because the Dnieper River is a natural security barrier. And the Russians feel like they can hold on to their edge. And, I don't know if that's something Trump would say to the American people, but he may be able to play it off in a way where he can now effectively do this politically by letting Ukraine basically be cut in half, and half of it going to Russia. And whether they take Odessa, that's another interesting question too, because Odessa's on the Black Sea. So it'll be an utter humiliation for the West. People like Academic Agent are talking about the breakup of NATO. I don't think we're there yet, but it's interesting to see where this might go. Zelensky, of course, shot himself in the foot, but none of us should be surprised to have seen the way things have been going with Zelensky for years now, and for the Ukrainian regime. We shouldn't be surprised that they behaved as they did. Hasta luego, amigos!